Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm Megan Kraft. I'm with the Office of Alumni Relations. I would like to welcome you to this alumni talk with Lynn Jones. She is the owner of My Type Letterpress. Throughout this talk, please feel free to submit your questions, any questions that you have for Lynn in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end. A little bit about Lynn. Lynn Jones graduated from Humboldt State in 2000 with a degree in art studio. After a life-changing internship with Berkeley printer David Lance Goins, she began printing things for friends and family and acquiring printing equipment. And in 2005, she set up her own studio in Arcata. And then in 2015, Lynn started printing the packaging for Dick Taylor Craft Chocolate. And in 2016, Lynn opened up a shop in Old Town Eureka with a working press in the window. My Type Letterpress specializes in greeting cards, stationery, art supplies, journals, books, gifts, local goods, and local art. So Lynn, we are so excited to have you here today and to talk to you about your business. Did you want to say anything before we start in on the questions?
No, I'm just thrilled to be here. This is great.
All right, great. So first question, tell us, how did you start your business?
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area and I came up to HSU to study graphic design and play soccer. And as a junior at HSU, that was in 1999, my graphic design professor, Mark Isaacson, set up a field trip so we could tour some different graphic design firms in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Berkeley. And the second day he took us to the studio of David Lance Goins. And that was in Berkeley. Mr. Goins has been printing in the same shop in Berkeley since 1964. He was kicked out of Berkeley during the free speech movement. And he wasn't really on the front lines of the free speech movement. He was more support. He was printing a lot of posters and ephemera for the students who were frontline protesters. And oh man, he just had amazing stories and a wealth of knowledge, and the way he was printing things and using his hands and not just sitting at a computer all day just really spoke to me. And I went back the next day to talk to him. And a few weeks after that, he called my professor and asked if I was available for a summer internship. So that summer I worked for him. And I'll get a little further into what we did later. But after that, I graduated. I went back to HSU. I graduated. And then I started to date my husband, who I met in the computer lab at HSU. So we're both HSU art students. He graduated a year after me. So I stuck around in Humboldt and I worked at the Times Standard for a year as a graphic designer. Then we both moved to Oakland together and I worked for Mr. Goins for a year. But then 9/11 happened and people stopped buying art because everybody was so sad. And I started printing for myself in Mr. Goins' shop. And he taught me how to use the letterpress machines and how to carve linoleum blocks and that kind of thing. So I wasn't working for him. I was using his equipment and doing my own work. And that's when I was printing mostly wedding invitations. And I tried to do some greeting cards and stuff. And that was 2002 to 2005-ish. And then 2005, we got married and a whole bunch of printing equipment came up for sale here in Eureka. So we moved back to Humboldt and I had a big shop on South G Street in Arcata. And I was doing mostly wedding invitations still, some business cards and other little things, jobs for people. And around 2007, that started to slow down. So I took a break to have kids and started working part-time for the North Coast Journal as a graphic designer. And then 2009, my husband and I built a house in Blue Lake next door to his parents. And we moved in there, and I moved all of my print shop equipment from storage into my garage. And I was lightly printing again then. And I was, as the kids got a little bit older, my son was about 3, I guess, I decided I was going to start ramping up my printing again. And let's see what happened. I started printing more fine art stuff, like that one right behind me, this cat. And I won the Victor Jacobi Award through Humboldt Area Foundation. And that really helped kickstart everything again. I was able to afford to put my son in daycare. My daughter was already in kindergarten. So I was able to get some work done while they were elsewhere. And after about a year of that, it wasn't going as well as I'd hoped. So then I contacted my friends, Adam Dick and Dustin Taylor, and who had started Dick Taylor Craft Chocolate by then. And it looked like they were really getting going with their business. And they had been doing everything on their own, making the chocolate bean to bar, as well as printing the wrappers and stuff. They have always had letterpress as part of their business. And I showed them how to use the letterpress. And at that point, they were 5 years into their business. I said, hey guys, looks like you're pretty busy. Can I do the printing for you? And they said yes. So for the next year, I printed on their machine in Dustin's dad's garage in Eureka. And from that point, I started thinking about, you know what? It might be nice to not have to go into his parents' house to use the bathroom and stuff. Maybe if they paid me a little bit more, I could find a studio outside of their garage. So that's what I did. I found this storefront in Old Town Eureka in the recently remodeled Carson Block. Yeah, Carson Block building. And spent 3.5 years in that storefront on the side of the building. And in June, we moved over here to the front side of the building. And it's been really great. So been in business in a retail storefront for about a little over 4 years now. So yeah, it's been a long up and down trip, but I'm happy with things pretty much now. Yeah.
That's great. So let's see, we have a question from Bob Duran here. He was asking, was he on John Wes's printer?
I don't think so. I'm not sure if John Wessa and Mr. Goins were ever acquainted. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So what do you think was the most challenging aspect of starting your own business?
Well, from the roller coaster I just explained, I kind of figured out like 3 different challenges because the business has started and stopped and restarted in so many different ways. I would say in 2002 through 2005, back then when I was really starting out, and there was no social media, how do I market myself cheaply? Like I didn't have the money for advertising. And back then it was basically radio, newsprint, and, you know, magazines, TV. And I didn't have the money to do that kind of advertising. So yeah, it was a challenging marketing time. And then in 2013, 2014, when I was trying to get off the ground as a fine artist, as a graphic designer, I didn't have that know-how how to get into galleries and how to get into art shows and that kind of thing. They're just kind of two different parts of the art world, and I wasn't skilled in the other one, or I wasn't business skilled in the other one. And then in 2016, when I started the store, it was, how do I run a storefront? How do I start payroll? You know, selling retail is pretty easy. You buy something and then you resell it. But there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it too. Yeah. So luckily, I did have a business partner when I started the store, Siobhan Ayers, who is also an HSU graduate. Oh, and by the way, Dick Taylor, they're also HSU graduates. So Siobhan and I worked together at the North Coast Journal as graphic designers. And, you know, at one point we was, oh, wouldn't it be nice to own a paper store? It'd be so fun, blah, blah, blah. And she had a little bit of retail experience from working at a clothing boutique and managing a clothing boutique when she was in college, or a little after. And so, yeah, we started the business together. And then after the first year, she left the business. She left Just My Type. Because she and her husband have their own business endeavors too. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges.
So one question to throw at you is, what do people misunderstand about this kind of printing that you do?
Sure. A lot of people don't understand why it's so expensive. And you know, if I can show them the finished product and they can run their fingers over it, or show them the printing press and how it works and how I have to do it, then they become a little more understanding that it's more of a craft rather than, you know, just hit Control P and print something off your computer, or offset printing, which is the way most of our stuff is printed these days, or digital printing. But yeah, it's this machine I use is from 1925, and it does have a motor hooked up to it, which speeds things up quite a bit. But I mean, the setup sometimes can take an hour just to set the thing up, even though it only takes you 15 minutes to actually run the job. So yeah, it's these days, letterpress is really cool because people find it really cool because of the impression that's left in the paper, where the plate hits the paper, it leaves an indentation. So that's what people really love to see these days. There's that tactile feeling about it. But you know, back in the old days, letterpress, you didn't want that impression because it would ruin your type or your block or whatever. So yeah, we try to walk that line depending on how we're printing and stuff. But I put each piece of paper into the press one at a time for each color that gets run on a thing. So I can show you right here, this example. So there's this Dick Taylor bar. I've printed the green and the orange on there. And it also looks like there's some brown there in the branches. That's just where the green and the orange overlap. So here's the orange by itself. And then here's the green by itself. And then when you put them together, you get that. So that means let's say I have to print 4,000 of these. I'll print 4,000 of these first by hand, and then overlay it with the green so that then 4,000 of these, so that I get 4,000 finished 2-color jobs. So I've done 8,000 impressions to get 4,000 envelopes. So yeah.
All right. So another question, true or false? Jennifer Lawrence has been photographed with your press work in hand.
Yes, I touched the envelope that she was holding.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I guess she was, paparazzi snagged a picture of her and her husband walking around in New York City during quarantine, and they like had a bottle of wine and a chocolate bar in their hand, and somebody noticed that it was a Dick Taylor bar. They have that just really distinctive packaging, and
Yeah.
I couldn't tell which flavor bar it was, but yeah, it was definitely a Dick Taylor bar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So today in the day-to-day running of your store, of your shop, what would you say is the most challenging aspect, and what would you say is the most rewarding?
Sure. I would say the most challenging aspect of having a business these days is balance. And there's a couple different ways that I would say. I mean, of course, there's family versus business balance. Like being a working mom is challenging no matter what industry you're in. It's almost, in my case, it's almost like having a third baby because I'm here all the time. I need to nurture this thing. But I also need to go home and spend time with my kids. I'd like to thank my husband for being such a great father. And oh my gosh, especially these days in the pandemic, he's working from home while I'm here at the store. And he is running the show, basically. So thank you, Andy. And then there's the balance of emotional decision making versus rational decision making. When I was trying to figure out whether to take the leap and move around the corner to a bigger storefront with higher rent and everything in the middle of a pandemic last June, it was, how do I feel about this versus what is this going to do to our financials? And, is this a worthwhile risk? All that kind of stuff. So, and then, that was challenging. And then there's the different aspects of my business. Balancing those has been really difficult because some of those aspects are more emotionally rewarding to me, whereas some just bring in the money. So we've got printing Dick Taylor stuff. We've got retail, all the stuff in the store. I've got wholesale, all of the cards and paper goods that I'm creating to sell in other stores. And then I've got my fine art practice also. So balancing those four things, it's almost like having four businesses under one roof. And yeah, that balance is probably the most stressful balance for me right now, is trying to figure that out. And then rewarding, I mean, there's so much that is rewarding about having this business and being active in the community. I love being here in the store and getting to teach people about letterpress printing and stuff. So many people have never even heard of this. The press is just like, what is that thing? I like being able to model strong entrepreneurial behavior for my kids and other kids, show them that they can do whatever they feel like they need to do. It doesn't have to be a, kind of a, I don't know, a gender-based stereotypical job that they take in their future.
All right, we're having some requests. People want to see the press that you've been talking about.
Yeah,
You take us on a little tour?
I can. Unplug that. We're gonna come over here. Okay. Gonna reposition the tripod here real quick. Yeah, you guys are all on my phone, so this is, I'll just take you with me. Oh, okay, well, hold on. I'll give you a wider shot of the press first. So there's the press. And be careful because you're all going to get hypnotized. Okay, so I'll put it right, well, sort of right there. Okay, so it is a little bit louder when it runs. So maybe I'll do a little bit of printing, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear me. We'll just try it, see how it goes. That's good. So, and I wear gloves just so I can get like a better grip on the envelopes. Today I'm printing 4,000 more of there it is. Ha! The limited edition Dick Taylor. This is going to be a new whiskey bar that they're putting out with Sonoma Brothers whiskey. So this is a gold ink. You can't, it's not all that shiny. So yeah, but so I'm putting this gold ink in that central area right there. So up here in this circular area, that's the ink. The ink is just kind of slathered on there and then smushed out by the rollers. And now the motor and the flywheel are cooperating with each other to keep the press moving. And the press is opening and closing, but it's not actually printing yet. So once I pull this lever over here, then it will actually print. So I'll get the envelope in place and now it'll print. And I take it off the press and put it in here. Each time the press opens and closes, it's re-inking itself. And the plate that's actually being printed is right here. I can take it out of the press and show you guys. See, it's reversed on there so that when it prints on the paper, it's forward. So this is a modern technique, a modern way of letterpress printing. It's a plastic plate that is exposed to UV light, and then the rest washes away with just like water and a toothbrush kind of brush, so that you're left with that raised surface on there. And then it's on an aluminum base locked up in a form with like just tension there. And that goes back in. And I'll start up the machine again. So right now it's just going pretty slowly. When I'm really going with these envelopes, I can do 1,040 minutes.
That's really fast.
Yeah, so that's the press.
Lynn, is this dangerous at all? I mean, could you lose a finger?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. People lose fingers or require major surgeries all the time. But not me, not yet. Knock on wood.
Yep, you have all your fingers.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
did you get it customized to have a motor?
Originally the press would have been run off of a steam donkey in the back of the print shop.
Oh, wow.
Back in the 20s. That would have had drive shafts up on the ceiling and then belts coming down to all the different machinery in the print shop. And then the Dick Taylor guys, that is their press. I just use it. I have my own press that's from 1907, same company, same size. I just don't have a motor on it. If I wanted to use my press, I just put a motor on it and use it for the same things. But yeah, using their presses is fine. They put that motor on it, and it has like a canvas belt or something that keeps it all going.
And then when you move it around, if you ever move the press around, do you have to recalibrate it?
Sort of. I mean, it not too much jostles on it. The parts that are supposed to move continue to move, and the parts that are not supposed to move, they stay stuck. So yeah, it's a very straightforward machine. That's what I love about it. You can see which part is turning what, and like what needs to be oiled, what needs to be greased. Other than that, like it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. It's not like a modern car where you have to be a software technician to figure out what's wrong with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you might have talked about this a little bit, but how did your passion for printing and this type of printing develop? Where did this come from?
Sure. Well, I took beginning printmaking at HSU, but we kind of did. I see. So Sarah Wharf is here. Hey, she's the printmaking professor at HSU currently. But I had Bill Anderson, and I didn't have Sarah. And we did like one type of each kind of printing, and we didn't dive very deep into any of them. And because I was a studio art graphic design major, I was just kind of dabbling in all of the other studio art things just because I had to get them done. I was focused on graphic design. So none of the printmaking techniques really spoke to me then, but with Mr. Goins and having that internship, he taught me how to carve linoleum blocks in his style, specifically so that we could complete the illustrations for the Chez Panisse Cafe cookbook. Hang on just a sec. I thought I gathered all my reference materials, but no, this is it. That's the book. And so he needed help completing the illustrations. I mean, just look at these end papers. They're amazing. They're gorgeous. So he taught me how to carve in his style. And so some of these in this book, I carved, like this one, and colored it in Photoshop to mimic his style, just so we could get all of them done for the book. And after it was done, after we submitted the book to the publisher, he taught me how to use the letterpress, and I carved some more blocks and did some more printing for him. And it was with the letterpress and the registration it offers, that means like lining up the colors when they layer on top of each other. The registration was so much easier with these kinds of machines than the types of presses they had in the HSU print lab. So that's what really got me, was it was like night and day. And yeah.
Sounds like you fell in love.
Yeah, totally. Didn't know there was ink in my veins, but yeah, it's there.
Great. We have a couple questions from Meadow Bell.
Yeah.
She wants to know, do you have to worry about the ink smearing when you put the finished ones in the box?
Not with the Dick Taylor stuff. So the Dick Taylor stuff, it's running such a thin layer of ink, and it usually has a really heavy impression. So, and that impression is actually down lower than the next one on top of it. So, and then also they end up putting the chocolate bar in, folding the flap down, and slapping a sticker on the back so it covers up any mistakes that might be on the back anyway. So, yeah.
All right. And then they also want to know how big of a piece can you print on the press?
So that press that I just showed you prints up to roughly letter size, maybe a little bit bigger. The larger stuff, like these ones behind me, I can do up to 18 by 24 on a press that's over there. That big green thing there under all that stuff. Because I'm so busy with printing greeting cards and Dick Taylor stuff most of the time, I don't get to use that big press as much as I would like, maybe.
Okay. And then could you show us some of your print creations?
Sure. So let's see. This is my latest. That's Golden Oak. It's 4 colors. It's of a tree in Martinez, California, which is near where I grew up. And then this, let's see, it's actually showing. This is Lucy. That's my cat. This one is kind of the one that started me back on working large and back into the limited edition prints. And then I'll go back and show you that one in a sec. But this one, let's see, that one with the 3 pieces, that triptych, that one was done for Cat Show LA. And the blocks that I carved for that one were then printed in the 3 process colors, one over each other, to create this print. And then this more narrow one, little ones. This one I created in 2015, and that's where I really kind of developed my current style, is the really detailed black and white. And then this one is Reverence for Elders, and I created that one in 2019 specifically for the Eureka Street Art Festival, because then I printed, or I'm sorry, well, yes, I printed it this size, and then I painted it with friends' help on the side of the Eureka Theater here in Eureka. It's 36 feet high and 17 feet wide. It's really, really, really big. And Sarah helped, and it took about a month to paint. It was quite a project. And then, so I've got some more that are kind of in the similar vein, the detailed black and white. This is Freshwater Farms Reserve. It was commissioned by the North Coast Regional Land Trust. And then this is Powetoll Island, which is off of Trinidad State Beach. And that one I just did for myself because I felt like it. Yeah, so those are the ones that are on the wall. There's probably some more in the print racks, but yeah, these are all available in the store and on my websites. But yeah.
Hey, great. And then we have some more questions here. So let's see. How how many blocks is the Lucy print,
Which Lucy print?
the one with flowers?
Oh, 2. So it is just 2. See if I can get you up close there. So it's just a black block and then a red block. That's it.
And then, another question from Meadowbells. Do you keep every block you make, or you revamp them, or do you throw them away?
I keep them. And for a true limited edition block edition, you're supposed to cancel the block or get rid of it or damage it somehow so that it can never be reprinted. I don't have the heart to do that. So I keep them, and yeah, they're just stored around here in different places.
All right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question. Your time at HSU. How do you feel HSU prepared you for your career?
I think HSU gave me a really good, well-rounded education. You know, one of my favorite classes was actually in physics. It was called the Cosmos. It was really interesting. All about the universe and stuff. And, you know, I had great professors all the way around. And, you know, I liked having to take studio art classes as well as graphic design, and not just be so immersed in graphic design that that was the only thing I learned about. And I made amazing connections. And the community that surrounds the school is really wonderful. You know, I got a husband and kids, and, you know, my first business partner, Siobhan, and Adam and Dustin, the chocolate guys. Just so many amazing friends and family, and now, you know, friends that maybe didn't go to HSU but now work for HSU. I just think that it was a really lucky and wonderful choice that I ended up going to HSU. I wanted to go as far north as possible, and within the state school system, get away from the Bay Area, not go south.
All right. I hear that from people who go to HSU. They want to try and get as far away in California as they can.
Yep.
And then I'm just so curious about how I'm sure I'm going to sound very ignorant asking this question, but how you get the design onto the blocks. I'm assuming you create them in a computer or some kind of graphic design in some way, and then how do they transition to the blocks for printing?
There's a couple different ways. So sometimes I'll start with a photograph. I took a photograph of my daughter 5-ish years ago, and so I kind of figured out this technique with that little one's print, the really tall, the narrower one in 2015, where I can transfer anything that I output from my laser printer, my black and white laser printer, onto the block. So I not necessarily, like, I won't mess around with the levels too much in Photoshop for the photograph, but a little bit. So I get deeper blacks and some midtones and then whites. Output it on my laser printer, and then let's just say that this is the surface of the block. You take the laser print and you put it face down, and then there's a special kind of marker, like a certain brand and everything, that has just the right chemicals to release the toner from the piece of paper onto the block. So then I've got the reversed image on the block, and then based on what has transferred on the block, I can carve out the parts that I want to remain light, or the parts that I don't want to print. So here's Ava, and this was carved from a photograph that I took of her. If here's another example that you can kind of see, but because there's not too much contrast there, it's hard. This image I created for these cards because a local apothecary, Witch in the Woods, she contacted me to create some cards that she can send out with her online orders. And she, of course, wanted something herbal because she goes out and she gathers herbs and things and puts them in tinctures and candles and whatnot. So she kind of gave me free reign. So she rattled off a couple of different plants that she liked. So we've got yarrow and lavender and wild roses in there. And so I scoured the internet for good pictures of those different plants. And then I used Photoshop and Procreate, either on my iPad or my computer. I kind of mashed it all together to create a composition that I like. And for this particular one, I used Procreate to like create like almost a tracing paper layer. And then I drew the lines that I wanted to carve. But that's not always the case. Sometimes I draw or I carve straight from the photograph, transferred the block. So it's, yeah, but it usually involves a laser printout transferred to the block. I don't do a lot of drawing directly on the block and carving from that. But.
Okay, so there's a lot that goes into it. It's a kind of quite the process.
Yes.
All right. Wow. All right. I have another question for you here. What kind of advice do you have for anyone thinking of starting their own business?
I'll repeat the advice that Mr. Goins gave to me when I was 21. Yeah, I would say, he said to me, follow your heart. You're only young once. If you screw up now, it's no big deal. And, you know, I kind of believe that that's true at any age. I started this business. I had $3,000. Siobhan brought $3,000 and my mom invested $3,000. And then I had a bunch of equipment too. So I didn't have to buy any equipment, but, oh, hold on. I'm getting another call. Decline. Okay, we're back. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it was a real leap of faith, but it's just like, if it's not tons and tons of money involved and nobody's life is on the line, just go for it. Because like doing what you really actually want to do in life is just amazing. There's nothing that can compare with that.
Do you have any regrets or anything? Are you
pretty busy these days.
okay.
It sure would be a lot easier if kids weren't in the picture, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it's very hard to juggle, but it's inspirational and wonderful that you are. So thank you. And then I just want to throw out there, if anybody has any questions, please throw it in the chat. I would be happy to ask them. I think there was one from Bob Duran that I missed. Let's see. Sorry, Bob, I'm looking for your question. Oh, here we go. Were the H Flint boys already in the craft printing business, craft printing business?
Nope. Those guys, they were, okay, so they graduated as recreation majors. That's how they met each other. So they were pals and they were playing music together and stuff in Huckleberry Flint. And then they were carpenters and they were, building houses for friends. They actually built our house. And it was on our job. So we built a house in Blue Lake, and the foundation that we chose was a little unconventional. Alchemy Construction put in the foundation, and then Adam and Dustin built the house on top of it. So that was where Amy and Steve Bonner from Alchemy met Adam and Dustin from Dick Taylor. And after our house, Adam and Dustin stopped building houses. They were subcontractors for Amy and Steve. And while they were subcontractors for Amy and Steve, they started messing around with chocolate. Like, I can't remember, like they had seen a documentary about bean to bar chocolate or something like that. And they're like, we could do this. So they started doing that. And so it was a little bit after they built our house that they got into chocolate, and they had helped me move all of my printing equipment from storage into our garage after the garage was built. The rest of the house wasn't finished yet, but so I think that's kind of where they saw that letterpress was a cool thing. And when they were starting their chocolate business, they had no budget, so they had to do everything themselves. And they went down to Richmond, California, and they purchased a little garage print shop from a guy and brought it all back up here on a flatbed trailer and started printing their own stuff. Yeah. So
Wow. I love how the documentary inspired them. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. And then here's a question from Sarah Worf. What is your next big challenge do you have in store for yourself?
Right now, my biggest challenge is getting my card line into more stores. So I've got a fully fleshed out wholesale line of paper goods now, and just need to convince stores to buy them. So yeah, that's the big challenge right now.
All right. And then we have a question. How many years did you do open studios out of your garage?
4, maybe 4 out of the garage in Blue Lake. 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 3 or 4, something like that. And then Open Studios was here in my place in Eureka. So.
All right. And then can you repeat what block you use for Dick Taylor printing and how it differs from mounted lino? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yep.
Am I? Okay. I am so Zeke, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm staring at a bar now and wondering how in the world you got those tiny dots with carving tools.
Nope, not carved. That's
okay.
The thing. Hang on a sec. I will find some more visual references. Okay. So let's see. So what happens is I create, so this happens for some of my work and all the Dick Taylor work. I use what's called a photo polymer plate. So photo, it's UV light sensitive, and then polymer plastic. So let's see. This is a piece of film where you can see that it's see-through in some parts and it's completely opaque in other parts. So the plate maker person, there's a couple all over the country. I get mine from a guy in Berkeley, but Dick Taylor gets theirs from Boxcar Press in upstate New York. I can never remember, Syracuse, Ithaca. Yeah, anyway, upstate. So this, imagine that this is a fully, like, it's thicker than it actually is now. The film gets put on top of the plate, sucked down with a vacuum so that there's absolutely no space between the film and the plate. And then a UV light shines through the film, and where the film is see-through, the UV light actually hits the plastic, and then it hardens that plastic. And then the plate maker takes the film away from the plate and then puts it through a different part of the plate maker machine where water and these little tiny scrub brushes kind of rub on the plate until you're left with just these really fine little details on there. So you can get really, really, really fine details. Here's a plate, the film that I had made. You can like barely see, there's tiny dots on there. It's almost like a halftone kind of thing, which is, printer speak for tiny, tiny dots. Yeah, so it's just all about UV light hitting the surface of this plastic and leaving behind that raised surface. So, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah, there's another whole like $10,000 machine and other people who do that part. So,
okay, gotcha. And then we have a question here from Catherine. How have you had to adapt to the pandemic?
yeah, that's been interesting. So, last year at this time, we were just closing the doors on the other shop, the small shop on the side of the building. And I was thinking, okay, we'll be closed for a couple of weeks. No big deal. I still had to print Dick Taylor stuff. So I would come into the shop and just keep the doors closed and I could hang out in there by myself. But then in May, I think it was the middle of May, people were allowed to open up again with masking and all kinds of different precautions. But by that time, we had already worked out negotiations for moving to this space in front of the building. So we just decided to stay closed for a couple extra weeks. And then we moved. And when we moved, we were able to open to a small number of people in the store. The reason we survived the months of May and April, looking back now, was basically because of Mother's Day and online sales. So I quickly put together packages of things. Dick Taylor chocolate with Hum Yum caramels and Just My Type Letterpress card was our #1 seller. We took care of shipping for the people. They could just write in the note on their online order what they wanted their card to say. Love you, mom, so and so, XOXO, their name, and then we sent it off as if it was from them. So basically all they had to do was give us their money. And then we'd ship off stuff. So that worked out pretty well. Up until that point, our online sales were next to nothing because people were just coming into the store, and it's tourists and some locals. And we really thought that tourism season last year was going to suck. But it was great because people were coming up here to camp and get away from crowds and non-masking areas like inland. And then fire smoke and stuff in September. So we had very few instances where we had to bark at people about wearing their masks and stuff. But Small Business Saturday was amazing. people were respectful and they lined up outside if we had too many people in the store. And, you know, I'm really thankful that so many people in our community are mindful about shopping from small independent businesses and shopping local and supporting, indie businesses.
That's great. And so, yeah, that kind of leads into this next question from Zeke. So do you have an online sales presence then?
Yes.
Okay.
So I sell on just my type letterpress.com. And I also have an Etsy store. I also have now a wholesale site through fair.com. So I feel like there's one other way. No, that's it.
Okay.
Right.
And then I'm curious, can we see your retail section in your store?
Sure. All right, let me see if I can flip the camera so I can see what you're seeing. Okay, so this is kind of the front counter area, and I've hidden most of my printing equipment behind the front counter. So this is the behind the scenes. Oh, this happens to be 18,000 Dick Taylor envelopes. That nice stack right there. And then there's more over there. And there's the press looking out the front window. That's F Street out there. And I built this wall basically so people could hear things going on in the rest of the store, because the press gets kind of loud when I'm running it at full speed. Up front now we have, kind of featured items on a table. And then, so these are our front doors. It's kind of weird. We have two separate regular size front doors. So all the press machinery had to come through one of those doors. We actually had to take the door frame off and like squeeze out another 1/4 inch just to get some of the machines through the door. And then going this way, we have stickers, and there's some pens and pencils, a lot of floral cards, kind of a springy vibe in the store right now. And then up here in the other front window is my press. That's a treadle press. So it runs by leg power, 1907. And then just right here, that's a paper cutter, a big guillotine paper cutter. And then looking this way, this is kind of our DIY section. So we've got linoleum blocks and printing supplies, and then some paper and washi tape and like make your own greeting cards and other stuff. And then some fancy pens in the cabinet. And then looking this way, we have, these are all my cards. These are ones that I print here in the shop, but then also ones that I've had printed by Times Printing here in Eureka. So they're reproductions of larger prints that I've done that I can't really reproduce well at that size with a letterpress. These are all box cards, more cards, lots of independent makers. These ones are mostly local designers. I try to feature local greeting card designers, specifically stationery people, not just artists that are reproducing their work on cards. These are journals and stationery and some how-to books, Uppercase magazine, which I really love. More cards. This is kind of our more expensive card section, where you get things like really elaborate pop-up cards and these quilled cards. So each one of those little things is a strip of paper that's been rolled up and then squished out to fit in exactly the shape that they want it to, and then they're glued down on edge. So those are really cool. And they support getting women out of sex trafficking in Vietnam. A lot of our cards are small maker, fair trade, not like crazy mass produced and that kind of thing. So we have some gift items too, candles and tea towels, and what else? We have some kids stuff. Here's Witch in the Woods, the company that I made those little floral cards for. There's some St. Patty's Day and Easter cards, pens and fancy calligraphy lettering type stuff, and some wax seals. And then there's my prints and tiles by Sarah Starr, who's an Arcata ceramicist. Yeah, and then I got flat files full of paper, which is also here on the racks, but then there's display up there of different handmade paper that we have from Nepal, calendars, little keepsake boxes and stuff. We sell typewriters, not a lot, but they come in occasionally. And then we found someone recently who repairs them locally. So she does a good job doing like a tune-up kind of thing, gives them a new ribbon, and then we resell them. Yeah. There we go. Whoop. Turn that back around. There we go. Hi.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Thank you so much. I love seeing your store. Yeah. So I think we're just about out of time. And do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I was going to say shop local, but I already did. So
yeah, definitely. Well, I just wanted to say Just My Type Letterpress is a member of the Forever Humboldt alumni owned business directory. It's new, and you can find that at forever.humboldt.edu, which is the alumni is HSU Alumni Association website. If you are an alumni who owns a business, or you know someone who an alumni who does, please go to the directory to submit your business, or let other alumni know so they can submit their business up on there. So you can go there and you can find Just My Type Letterpress right up there, as well as some other businesses. So, and we're always looking to add more. So this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time today to present to us, Lynn. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you to everyone who attended.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.